Okay, well, let's move on to the work plan and talk about that. So this is the fourth of 7 sections of the project narrative. Review criteria that the work plan falls under is called impact and response. Potential points are 40, so that's the most of any of the sections in the narrative. So we're suggesting, again, based on an 80-page limit, if we were to use all 80 pages, the work plan could be somewhere between 20 and 25 pages. So this is the biggest section of your project narrative. And then associated attachments, again, we talked about attachment 5 being the progress summary report, which is a summary of the non-competing summary report that you submitted last December. That talks about past activities, which will serve as kind of the basis of what you're talking about going forward. So rather than, you're not going to spend a lot of time in the work plan talking about past activities, because that's in attachment 5. But you can refer the reader to the attachment for previous history. So just graphically, you can see here, again, the work plan is worth essentially 40% or 40 points of the 100, so it's by far the biggest. Not to suggest that the other sections aren't important, they all are important, but this is where you really want to concentrate the time talking about what it is you're going to do. So there's a reason they call it the work plan, because it is where you're going to describe what it is you're actually going to do in detail, the what and the how of your goals and objectives. So you do, this is very important, you want to follow the roadmap that you developed in the methodology section, again, using the same goals and objectives. Now, whether you end up maybe combining these with some sort of an orientation to the reviewer, that sections 3 and 4 are combined, or whether you keep them separate. If you keep them separate, I think it really is important that you want to use the same goals and objectives and the same wording. And that's why we suggest internally it is a good idea to cut and paste. So the goals and objectives you use in the methodology section, you can cut and paste those into the work plan section, so you're using the exact same wording, not just a general reference to a goal or objective. So this is on page 25 of the FOA. This is the work plan, and it says there's a few specific things in here that it talks about we're going to point out. So the work plan, describe the activities or steps that will be used to achieve the performance measure standard. Use a timeline that includes each activity and identifies responsible staff. So there's a few little buzzwords here that we're going to use to think about how we structure our work plan. Identify meaningful support and collaboration with your EMSC advisory committee, fan reps, and other key stakeholders in planning and designing all activities. It talks about down below here, include activities needed to complete the needs assessment or the reassessment for Category 3 applicants, which you all are Category 3 applicants. And also include a data dissemination plan. Joe, I think you mentioned this yesterday, the data dissemination plan. I think you, maybe I misheard it, but anyway, there's some key words here that are good to use in terms of putting together your work plan. It's not necessarily everything that you want to discuss in your work plan, but these are some key ideas. So let's go through each one of these. So activities. If you were going to think about all the activities that you might be doing under any of the performance measure areas, there's reassessment, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but there are other things as well, trying to improve the number of agencies that have protocols. You might be distributing protocols to agencies, or purchasing and distributing equipment, promoting the PEDS readiness assessment, attending NEDARC workshops, holding advisory committee meetings, expanding number of PEP offerings. These are all examples of types of specific activities that you would be talking about, or could be talking about in your work plan. These are not the things that you're putting in the methodology, because you're just talking about the goals and basic objectives, but this is more detailed. Specifically, is mentioned the performance measure reassessment. So this is where you're going to want to talk about your plan for reassessing each of the performance measures. Keep in mind that, as we talked about yesterday, that performance measures 76 and 77 are going to be plans that are going to be part of the pediatric readiness assessment. So those measures will essentially be surveyed for in the coming, this coming fall and into early next year with the PEDS readiness project rollout. Think about the role of the FAN rep and the advisory committee and other folks who get involved in this process. And again, this is a very collaborative, kind of a multi-organizational process for, certainly for the PEDS Ready project, but also for the performance measures. So you will essentially be writing into your work plan a plan for reassessing the EMS performance measures in 2013 and 2014.
Yeah, well, also for 16, right?
Well, in 16 and 17, because there will be 2 data collection cycles.
Within what we're applying
Within
for.
this
So we
4-year.
need to include it twice.
Right. So the data dissemination plan, that was explicitly stated in the work plan. So the overall goal or the idea behind this data dissemination plan, again, is that the data don't just sit there, but that they get out, and they get out beyond just, say, for instance, your EMSC advisory committee, and really think about a broad kind of a distribution net for the results of both performance measures, for pediatric readiness, and any other types of data that you might have. You want to describe the type of media that you would use in a data dissemination plan, and there's several different ways you can obviously get data out. This is a picture of a fact sheet, for example. What are some other types of media you might use to disseminate data?
We get a description for that dissemination data workshop, what we're going to learn specifically that to include in our work plan.
Which workshop?
Dissemination of data, San Diego.
Oh, that's yeah. Let's see. Yeah, we have it. It's identifying opportunities for improvement, but it has to do with, certainly has to do with data dissemination, yes.
So you're able to give us lists of what those are going to be, but
Like the types of things you might be learning and things you might, things you might be having.
be able to produce after going to that meeting.
Yeah. We can put together a kind of a shell of some things that can be used.
The learning objectives and description are on the New York website.
Okay.
Maybe, take a look at that, Ron, and see if that
Thank you.
that gives you enough. So this is a good place that perhaps your, again, beyond your advisory committee, that your FAN rep or other elements of the work plan is a timeline, and anticipated timeframes for all the activities that you'll be talking about. I know folks who've written these grants before have probably done these in different ways. When you talk about your work plan and various activities in that, you can talk in kind of a text format about the time frame and the anticipated time frame of the activities. You can put it into a more visual type of a matrix. And so there's different options for that. I'll show an example here in just a second. Responsible staff, again, one of the elements of the work plan. Who's going to be doing the activities? We've got a bunch of different folks who could be, the project personnel, you all, the program manager, obviously a big part of it. You've got the PI, you've got the FAN rep, advisory committee, other stakeholders. But these are you want to be descriptive here about in terms of who's going to be doing what as much as you can, because that gives the reviewer a real sense that this is, there's a plan for this. It's going to get done. So, going back to one of the examples that Amber provided in the methodology section, if you were to take a goal of having each performance measure be a goal, for example. So here's for performance measure 71, all pre-hospital providers have access to online medical direction to make sure patients are transported to the right definitive care hospital, and you have an objective under that to conduct a reassessment of pre-hospital provider agencies in 2013 and 14. This is what's listed in your methodology section. These are some of the activities that might fall under that goal and objective in the work plan, such as contacting your NEDARC rep, updating your EMS agency contact lists, contacting the State EMS Provider Association to work with them to help disseminate the reassessment, sending out assessment invitations. These are the kinds of steps or activities that you might see under that goal and objective. Responsible staff, you could write it out this way. Program manager will do the following, project director, so forth, fan rep will. A lot of times the responsible staff, you might have the same, you can be kind of brief on that too. And we've done it before in the NEDARC, you can actually just write the name of the person who's going to be doing that idea. You don't have to, have volumes of text about describing it. Just say, the project director will complete this activity. Again, timeline. You could write it in text form. Going back to this example, we're using contact the NEDARC rep in May of 2013. Update the agency contact list May. Contact the Provider Association by June, or put it into a table sort of a format. Some folks, I think, have chosen, and this might be true with folks in the room, to have a timeline that maybe even at the end of the work plan that encompasses all of the activities that are described in the work plan, kind of a master timeline. So again, there's options on how you do that. But the point is to include, anticipated time frames for these things. This is a screenshot of one of the pages from the recent NEDARC submission. So I like to just take you through how we structured it. Now, our sections were a little different than the 7 sections that you all have. There were 5 sections, and they were put together a little bit differently. But this is a page talking about essentially workshops, the workshops that we do. And the overall goal is to provide data-related technical assistance to EMSC state partnership grantees. The objective to support learning communities among states, territories to achieve performance measures through facilitated workshops, panels, and networking opportunities. And this was taken. Wording was taken closely out of our FOA. So underneath that goal and that objective, we had what we called a work plan, which in your case you might be calling it an activity or steps. It was because of the way our sections were outlined. Work plan, we talked about just generally holding national workshops, that being an ongoing activity, how we do a reassessment every year of the grantees to find out what type of topics they're interested in. We have responsible staff. We talked about Andre as our workshop coordinator. She and the executive secretary handle all workshop logistics, and all NEDARC staff and faculty participate in the design of the workshop. So it's a pretty brief, just a very short paragraph of responsible staff, and then a timeline. Schedule of 2012-13 NEDARC workshops is, and then we've got them listed right here. This is an example of an activity that lends itself really nicely to a timeline because there's specific dates for these workshops. Some activities are more ongoing, so it's, the timeline kind of just goes for a period of time. One of the things that we like to do a lot, which I think is helpful for a reviewer, is use side headings in your work plan. Because again, this is the biggest section of your project narrative. If you can use side headings like this, work plan, responsible staff, timeline, or you might call these activities, responsible staff, and timeline. But if you use that consistently under each objective, or perhaps even if you're clustering objectives together like objectives, and you describe that that's the roadmap you're going to be using in the work plan, that each goal and objective is followed by activities, responsible staff, and timeline, and then lay it out this way, then it's very easy for the reviewer to read that and see it and expect it to know that it's coming with each goal. Okay, so we have about 35 minutes for you to start drafting, outlining.